Sir, I am thankful to the Honorable Minister and the UPA government for not bringing forward the bill in the form in which it was envisaged, formulated, and introduced in 2000, making a provision of bringing down the government's stake in banks to 33%. That would have been a great disservice to the economy, and the country's interests have been seriously hurt by such a step. Then I think it would have been difficult for us to support the bill. Sir, I am thankful that such a retrograde provision has been dropped. Secondly, sir, notwithstanding the basic framework of the public sector status, the bill aims at increasing the number of stakeholder directors in the banks so as to provide for a more equitable representation on the board of directors. While welcoming this move, let me express some of my expressions which, though are not related to this bill entirely, but have some bearing on the changing provision of the non-government directors in the bank's boards. The present position allows for representation of non-government stakeholder director on the basis of the shareholding pattern, and in this process a director from the corporate sector may well find a place in the board of a bank. My question is, if in this process one such non government director who is at the same time a defaulting borrower or a non performing assets generator finds a place in the same bank's board just by virtue of his shareholding, will it not be a case of conflict of interests, and how do you propose to address it? Now, there may be some provisions that banks do not lend to the directors, but in our given system, there are a number of cases of many flagship group of companies where one unit of that flagship company generates non-performing assets and other unit goes on enjoying the credit from the same bank. Such kind of cases are plenty. So I think their issues require to be appropriately addressed by the central government while framing rules, etc. I may kindly be enlightened as to how these will be addressed. Thirdly, sir, I think the government must also take a serious view about this kind of possibility and stop further divestment in government shares in the banks and frame appropriate rules to prevent such situations of conflict of interests. Sir, our banking system supports around 50% of our GDP, which is way behind not only the developed countries but also many of the developing countries. This kind of situation warrants wide expansion of the banking system and banking network to a vast section of our population who are mostly the victims of unscrupulous money lending system. This requires the banking system and the network must invade the remotest rural segment of this country to replace this unscrupulous money lending system. This needs a reorientation of the policy relating to the interest rates applicable to different segments of the economy, different stakeholders in the economy, like large scale sectors, small scale and tiny sectors, agriculture and other rural occupations. I don't know exactly how does it sound technically viable, particularly when various stalwarts are sitting before me. I am not confident about it, but I am just expressing myself. I do not know what are the technical difficulties in operating this kind of a differential interest rate regime. But as I understand, treating different segment of people having different economic status, having different strength in a different manner in the best way of ensuring equity. I think that is also the role of the government when they talk about common man oriented growth. So, how these two things will fit in together to have equity in these areas and access to the financial sources, I think it should be seriously considered. In the case of large scale manufacturing service sector, the interest burden can be passed on to the product, but in small scale and tiny sector as well as in the agricultural occupation, they do not have that much elbow room between their cost and the ruling market price in an extremely competitive scenario. In this house itself, just before this debate began, the Honorable Agriculture Minister has also admitted that even in the rural economy, the peasants do not take loan for funding their capital expenditure, putting up pumps and other irrigations, etc. That is their situation. That creates a very deep indebtedness among the farmers. So I think this warrants a very serious consideration on these aspects. So, sir, if this is the background, if this is the need, I think simply market solutions cannot work. Only the central government norms cannot deliver the goods. Something more is required to be done. How should we do it in this framework is the basic question of maintaining the industrial development of the country. So, I request the Honorable Finance Minister to throw some light on these areas as well. In this context, I would also request the Minister to review the proposal for omitting the provisions relating to the mandatory nomination of directors by the Reserve Bank of India in the bank boards. This is crucial in the sense that the Reserve Bank of India plays a crucial role in monitoring, supervising the functioning of the banks and mixing the same from time to time with the priorities of the country. So, this has assumed more importance, particularly in the background of the observations made in the Reserve Bank Bulletin itself regarding the banking sector missing their target with regard to priority sector lending, particularly pertaining to the small scale sector, tiny sector, and agricultural sector. 1 year ago, the Reserve Bank of India made such concrete observation. So, in this respect, I request the Honorable Finance Minister to consider this. Before I conclude my speech, I would like to draw the attention of the Honorable Minister to some other general issues. I think the bill should have been brought a long time ago, but it has been delayed because of the dissolution of the 13th Lok Sabha. Most of the amendments proposed in this amendment bill are largely administrative in nature. They are expected to remove the efficiency of the functioning of banks, mainly public sector banks.